Gadge, one of my favourite forum threads of all time is on the Arse forum.
That's the Army Rumour Service, yeah.
Which is hilarious most of the
time.
time.
A dangerous place to frequent.
Dangerous place to frequent. But they have a thread called The Search for an Alley Star.
Right.
And they're looking for the alliest soldier in the entirety of history. Now, personally, I think they found him a long time ago, and I'll show you guys a picture now. But this has been going on this is now about 2,000 pages of pictures of soldiers trying to be alley. Well, I thought what we do for the viewers today is talk about just what is alley, what does alley mean, and where does it come from?
See, alley's an interesting term. So I remember being a recruit soldier and then a trained soldier, and people go, "Oh, that's well alley." Alternative to say things were Wary or Gucci. But do you know what? Despite the fact I had a lot of kit myself that was considered alley, never actually knew where the word came from.
So I did a bit of digging just before we started this episode, and it comes from the 1960s when the British Army were on deployment, and particularly the paras, when they're wearing their berets in very hot places. And honestly, when you're in a very hot place, almost like it is
quite
today,
sunny,
it's balmy 23 degrees.
They couldn't wear sunglasses
They couldn't wear sunglasses back then, and they didn't have nice ball caps like you do.
Not allowed either.
So what they ended up doing was shading their eyes with their berets. So instead of having it formed over their
turning it right round,
ear, they turned it right round, and they pushed all the material forward to form a little, almost like a
flat cap.
Now, the suspicion is, and apparently it's quite probable, is that alley is probably a really, really, really bad British derivation of a local word that meant shade.
That makes sense.
Okay, so you had an alley beret.
Now, given that the British Army has stolen words from every place it's ever been deployed to, things that we take for granted, like the word khaki, Indian word for dust.
Yep.
You know, bukshi is an army phrase for someone's, if it's free, but it's the Indian word for money.
Dobby as well.
Dobby, washing.
Dobby,
yeah. So if they've taken a local word and used it for a cool phrase, it makes sense. Like the SAS used to use the word keeny meeny for sneaking about, which was a type of snake, I believe, that went through the grass.
Okay.
So it was like snake-like movements.
That then, when they came back, it sort of morphed into making your issue kit more suitable for the job that you were going to do.
And that is where I've always understood the term to come from. So, for example, recently I had a bit of a flashback because I got a little bit of a gift package from a friend of some old 1970s and 80s kit, and in it was a 1944 pattern metal mug, which, as I've already got one, I thought you should have it, Tom. So, an alley thing to do back in the day when I was a soldier was you got issued a plastic mug with a plastic cup.
I'll show you a picture.
Kind of useful thing. Doesn't make as much noise. It's black, it's tactical, but you can't heat your backpack over a fire or a hexi flame using a plastic mug. So a lot of guys would carry the 44 pattern mug. It was 50 years out of date, but it was actually better for doing your job than the kit you were issued with.
Yeah. So that was it was issued a long time ago.
Originally designed for World War II, but didn't really get there in time.
Yeah. And then so that's kind of the origin of the word. As we said, it morphed into adapting your issue kit, and then certain bits of issue kit became alley in themselves. So I've got one on right now.
Yeah, you've got an SAS Smok, which we always call SAS Smoks.
Yeah,
and they're part of the windproof clothing range that the SAS were issued. There is actually an SAS pair of trousers, etc. But as a normal soldier, you didn't get one of those issued to you unless you were doing particular jobs that required you to have a windproof suit, maybe going to the South Atlantic.
Yeah, or going up to Norway, or
but if you could beg, borrow, steal, or buy one privately, and you were seen cutting about with one of those smocks, they were considered alley things to have because they were very light, they were windproof, they were showerproof.
This is much lighter material than my. I've got a 95 pattern and I've got an older Smok as well. Yeah. They're much heavier and they're fully lined as well. Yeah. So I'd imagine when they get wet, they're a complete nightmare.
Yeah, they get very heavy. They're really robust. They get wet. They dry out quickly. The pockets don't fall off. I've got one I've used both as a reservist and as an airsofter for 20 years, and we played airsoft in it the other month. Yeah, and it's still going strong. It's got a bit of fraying around the cuffs.
Yeah, this one's frayed everywhere, which we've done a bit of repair. We're going to carry on repairing it because I'm sure that's what the soldiers did when they got this much beloved. I've seen some pictures of stuff on eBay that's
patched up,
that's basically completely been rebuilt from the ground up.
To give you an example about SAS Smok, so I remember when I just got to my company, and a friend of mine was actually in the reservist 23 SAS, And I was good friends with him, and one day he posted me a SAS Smok, and I didn't even know what they were.
Yeah.
And I said to my corporal of the training team, I was like, what's this? He went, oh, it's a load of rubbish, that's half. You want to give that to your corporal? It's rubbish. I went, hang on a minute, hang on. So I looked into it and found out that it was a Smok that at the time would have cost me about £120 to buy from a surplus store, because it was so much better constructed, better thought out than the general infantry issue Smok, which at the time was a 90 pattern, which is... It was good for the job, but it was heavy. Like you said, it's hot, it's heavy. It's great in winter, but not so great in summer.
Yeah, because I've worn. When did we wear this? It was about 20-something degrees when we wore this. I just had a light shirt underneath, but it was absolutely fine. I got a bit hot, but cutting about an airsoft field, particularly in Britain, it's great. And also because I like doing 80s, 90s games, this will work really well.
And we went through some thorny areas, and it's not got any rips or tears in it.
So it's absolutely fine. It came with the buttons taped up,
which is another alley thing. Is to put tape over your buttons to stop the reflection.
So I put a bit more on myself.
Like, I think the odds of anyone ever being seen by a reflected button, right, are extremely
Apparently
slim.
Apparently it's
IR. Is it?
Yeah, it's an IR thing, so they glint. They glint under IR more than actual reflection.
Well, that would make more sense, because I was thinking, do you know what? I'm pretty sure people just cover every shiny surface.
I almost had little things like this.
Yeah.
So again, this is when we found it in Anchor Supplies. This is what it came with.
Yeah. A lot of people, when you you keep a grenade ring pull, put it on your smocks, or when you've got very cold fingers, or you're wearing gloves, you can use the zips. And again, it's those little field mods to an issue bit of kit, which made most things alley. It could even be not even modifying the kit, but just using something that wasn't really designed for you. So,
tropical trousers.
Exactly. I was just about to move on to tropical trousers, Tom. So, for example, again, we were issued the 90 pattern set of combats. Okay. Some of the older guys had 85 pattern combats, which were terrible.
They were really, the reading I've done, they were the most universally disliked bit of kit.
You got wet, you stayed wet, and because we had a fairly lenient OC, he let us in the field wear whatever made us comfortable and worked. And again, this is taking things from the Parachute Regiment and the SAS, who everyone looked up to.
Yep.
We were allowed to buy our own tropical pattern trousers. Now, you can see we call them Dayglow for a reason. They are
a very old pair.
Yeah. I mean, like, I could just about get a thigh into them these days. I think they're about a 28, 30 inch waist.
Wow, okay, right.
That's very young me would wear those. But you can see how bright the dyes are. And again, ideally that's so the DPM pattern still works when they're wet.
Yeah, because these are meant for tropical rainforests.
But in reality, when you're doing infantry work, even in fairly temperate weather in the UK, you're wet a lot of the time. You're crawling, you're crossing through streams, and they're not that bright that they don't work.
And then they're much lighter. Am I right? They're a much lighter fabric, so they
very light fabric.
So they dry a lot faster.
Well, it's also they've got a high plastic content.
Right. Okay.
Which is why a lot of units, nearly all units, in fact, wouldn't let people wear them in Northern Ireland, because there's a massive petrol bomb fire risk.
Right. Okay. So and obviously
they would stick to your legs.
Petrol bomb on the road. Yeah. So these are a pair of Dragon Repros, which aren't amazing, but they were also available.
Yeah.
Because tropical trousers are now very hard to find, and certainly in a size for me, virtually impossible.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to find a tropical shirt in my size a while back, which I never actually had at the time because I never needed it because I wore a SAS Smok.
Yeah.
And again, I found that cheap in a junk shop for about 15 quid. And the list of these kind of things that are pushed into service while not being British Army issue or issue to you is numerous. I mean, things like US jungle boots are popular with some people. The 58 pattern water bottle pouch is an absolute nightmare to get into in one hand, so people use either the 44 pattern one or the US Alice one.
Yeah.
If you had a unit that would let you use Alice webbing, it's not unusual to see guys in the 80s who've got either Bundeswehr or US Army pouches for certain things because they found their escape and evasion pouch. They just use an old US Army pouch.
I guess there's a difference between stuff you wear in barracks or on parade, or stuff when you have to do an inspection, and then stuff you actually use when you're in the field.
Yeah, very much. So you get a dress state or a dress code, and you'd be told that in winter or something it was jumper order combat. So you wore your combat trousers and a shirt and a jumper, and everyone looks the same. That's what you wore, and if you're cutting around on something else, you'd probably get your ear bent about it.
Yeah.
But with a good OC who would let you work in the field with whatever worked for you, it's great. Some guys didn't like it. It's recorded in a few books. The idea being that if you're on a very long operation or if there's a war, you can't be used to cutting around in your favourite tropics and Alice webbing, because if it breaks and you get a resupply, you need to be able to work with whatever the British Army provides you.
Yeah.
I think the last thing we need to touch about with Ali kit is completely custom kit, and we have broached upon this briefly in our webinar course before. So at the moment, I'm wearing a windproof sort of like, just like a hoodie top sort of thing, that's fairly rough looking, and it's not the most fashionable of items, but it's actually made from a discarded parachute canopy.
Yeah.
And this was given to me by a friend who's in One Para.
Yeah.
And he said essentially the unit tailor would knock these up for you.
Yeah.
Because you can crush this down.
Yeah.
And fit it into half of a water bottle pouch, and they make matching trousers so that you could wear them as an undersuit to stay warm if it was particularly cold, or you could sleep in it.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly easy going. You know, it's like quite lightweight, and they're considered quite alley.
Yes.
I think they call them zoot suits.
I'm sure they're still made properly these days. We talked about this before in the webbing article, but this would be a very alley set of kit. This is my custom webbing set that we found at Anchor Supplies, completely sewn together from issue pouches onto a custom hippo pad. If you want to see more of it, you can go and look at the British Army webbing.
But the point being that particular soldier is so motivated that he got a set of webbing that looks like it's normal stuff,
Yeah.
but is far superior in every way to the issue bit of kit, so he could do his job more effectively.
Yeah, and that's I think ultimately that's what alley means. It's kit that allows you to do your job more effectively.
Yeah.
It's kind of got a bit translated into
fashion
and just wearing shiny stuff for the sake of it, or buying really shiny stuff.
So I think one thing you can do is take it to extremes. So if you take bush hats, for example, they come with quite a wide brim, and originally guys would cut them down because they got a bit wet and floppy, went over the eyes, they're a bit too much. But then you start seeing it becoming a fashion, and people take to ridiculous extremes where the brim's like a centimetre and the whole crown's pulled down.
So it doesn't keep the water or the sun out of your eyes anymore, and it doesn't break your silhouette up.
Yeah, it basically becomes a skull cap.
Yeah. And then I guess one last thing we could talk about is alley guns. So this is you've seen this on the channel before. It's now been somewhat alley-fied.
Or taped up M16.
Or allied up. Because M16s were used by the British Army, even in the regular line infantry.
I think they start being used in the very late days of like Malaya. Or
almost before the US.
Borneo.
Almost before the US adopted them, because they were lighter and handier than the SLR. Yeah. But even when the L85 came out, they were still used.
Yeah. Gurkhas had them because they were lighter than SLRs.
So this is, and then things like Recce, we've done a bit of knocking about as Recce platoon just for a bit of a laugh, but they would certainly have more access to them. And then to break them up, although painting weapons was really not
very frowned on. Only certain units got away with it.
You could bung some tape on at the start of a tour or start of an exercise or start of a patrol, like this one, which would really help break up the outline.
And then take it off before you need to hand it in to anyone.
And then take off and not get shouted at. But of course, if you're cutting about on exercise with a taped up M16, you must have been pretty damn alley at that point.
But it's interesting that's changed in the fact that again, when it used to be an alley and quite a warring, exceptional thing to see. Yeah. Now you see line infantry in the British Army, or even sort of like support services, who are allowed to paint their weapons because it's just why get someone killed purely because you don't trust them with a spray can?
Because you want a nice black gun.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is so that was a brief look at alley,
as we understand it.
Now, if you have a different definition or you think we're talking complete nonsense, feel absolutely free to tell us in the comments. Have you used alley kit? Have you served? And what was your opinion on people with alley kit?
What's the alliest bit of kit you ever saw?
Indeed. So I've been Tom Anvil Hibberd.
I've been Gareth Gadge.
Please like, share, join our Patreon if you can spare the cash. If not, any sort of help is always appreciated. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.